So in the last video, we talked about how toxins are the primary driver of inflammation in the body and how inflammation is the primary reason why our metabolism slows down as we age. And we can get into the other health effects of inflammation in another video, but inflammation, just suffice it to say, puts you at greater risk for cancer and neurodegenerative diseases and rapid aging. So it's so important that we reduce inflammation in the body. And since toxins are the primary driver of inflammation, let's talk about strategies for detoxification. So number one is just really reducing the introduction of further toxins into the system as much as we can, which really is choosing to eat organic foods whenever possible. Because if you're introducing foods that are laden with pesticides and herbicides such as glyphosate, you're going to just be continuing to dump toxins into your body. So really watching that the food you're consuming and the beverages you're consuming, whenever you can, is organic. I think it's incredibly important. And that really then extends to the water that we drink as well, because our municipal water supply is missing. The filtration process, the process that it uses to purify the water, is really still leaving the water pretty heavily contaminated. And so, again, if we can develop ways of ensuring that we're drinking pure, clean water, that's going to really reduce the accumulation of toxins in the body. And then be mindful of personal care products and what you clean your home with so that you're not introducing toxins that way. Now, aside from just reducing the additional accumulation of toxins as much as you can, we really want to employ some detoxification strategies. And one of my favorite products right now is a Nano Zeolite formulation in a product called Vitality. And this Nano Zeolite actually has 2 patents on it. One is a patent that they were able to determine a way to ensure that the product was clean. Zeolites are a particular type of chemical structure that has a really high binding affinity for heavy metals and other biotoxins such as mycotoxins and toxins produced by microorganisms. And so it's essential that you are taking one that's clean, because these nanozeolites can bind toxins in the environment, and sometimes you can unwittingly introduce further toxins into your system. So I really like this Vitality product with this patent that ensures that it's clean before it goes into the bottle. The second patent that they've developed is a particular way of hydrolyzing it. So nanozeolites usually more kind of remain just suspended in water as particulates, and would gradually just kind of separate out. But this process they developed allows it to really dissolve in water and then be more easily delivered into the body. The other difference is that this is orders of magnitude smaller than other zeolite products on the market, and that allows the nanozeolite to enter into the cell membrane and pull toxins out of the cell membrane, as well as enter into the cell and pull toxins out of the intracellular space. So I have seen incredible results with this product, and actually it's been incorporated into a weight loss program that we are offering at our clinic that is incredibly successful. So and when this product was introduced into that program, it really increased the results that we were seeing. So that's one thing. And then when the body has a toxin that the body's attempting to eliminate, majority of those toxins are eliminated through the liver. And the liver will take a toxin and actually hydrolyze it, adding an OH group to it, which renders that toxin more toxic actually. And then in order to eliminate it from the body, it has to conjugate that more toxic intermediate with a conjugating nutrient. So one of the conjugating nutrients the liver uses is glutathione, which is a sulfating agent. And that is really one of the primary kind of ways that the liver is going to bind the more toxic intermediates to route them out of the body. So it's really important, I think, to include glutathione as a supplement, or even one of its precursors like N-acetylcysteine. And that will upregulate that particular pathway that the liver uses to conjugate nutrients and eliminate them. Another important conjugating nutrient is glucuronic acid. And glucuronic acid is naturally derived from cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, Brussels sprouts. So it's really important to include a large amount of those in the diet. And you can supplement with a supplement called calcium D-glucarate, which has 200 milligrams of glucuronic acid per capsule, and 1 twice a day or 2 twice a day is a really nice addition if you're working on detoxifying toxins. Methylating agents can be incredibly important as well, and so we've got methylfolate and methylcobalamin that provide the methyl groups that the liver is going to use to conjugate those toxins to eliminate them from the body. Now, once the liver has conjugated a toxin, it dumps them into the biliary tree, which is this tree network of bile channels. And then the biliary tree goes from smaller channels to larger into the common bile duct, and then that dumps into the small intestine. And so you get a dump of toxins from your liver into your small intestine on a regular basis. And so a very important thing to do is to bind those toxins once they enter the gastrointestinal tract. Because sometimes if you don't bind them, they can get reabsorbed and then recirculate in the body, maybe finding another home. So using binding agents periodically can be an incredibly important part of this detox strategy. So what are binding agents? They are bentonite clay, activated charcoal, chlorella. Again, you want to make sure you have clean forms of chlorella that you're introducing into your body. But these will bind toxins once they get dumped into the gastrointestinal tract so that they can then be whisked out of the body in your stool. So I think there's a place for adding these detox supportive nutrients, and you don't have to do it on a regular basis, but periodically to really facilitate the release of these things from the body. The other thing that I talked about in the last video is working to reduce inflammation in the body by being mindful of the ratios of macronutrients you're consuming. So what are macronutrients? Carbohydrates, fats, and protein. So looking at the ratios of these things coming into the body can be very helpful. In the US, people tend to rely too heavily on carbohydrates, and carbohydrates break down into glucose, and glucose raises your blood sugar. So if you're eating too many carbs, or if you're eating forms of sugar, you're going to have a higher blood sugar than if you were ingesting fats, for example, or protein. So protein can break down into glucose, but to a much lesser degree than carbohydrates. So looking at the ratios of these macronutrients is very critical. And not everyone needs to go onto a keto diet, which is severely restricting carbohydrates and really increasing the amount of fat that's coming in. But leaning in that direction can be incredibly beneficial. So I think as a rule, as we age, we want to reduce the consumption of carbohydrates, because the more that you eat them, the higher your blood sugar is going to be on average, and the more insulin your pancreas has to produce in order to keep your blood sugar controlled. And so when you have higher levels of insulin in your bloodstream chronically, it begins to desensitize your insulin receptors in your cell membranes. So it's like if the insulin receptor keeps seeing insulin, more insulin, it kind of gets sick of it, so to speak, and becomes less sensitive. And so then the insulin, which is like the key, doesn't work as well in the receptor, which is like the lock. So normally the insulin key binds to, goes in the lock, opens it, turns it, and opens up a door that literally allows the glucose to leave your bloodstream and go into the cell where it belongs so that it can be used for the generation of energy. So when that key starts not fitting in the lock as well, it's going to lead to higher levels of blood sugar and higher levels of insulin. And insulin is an inflammatory producing hormone. So the higher your insulin levels are, the more inflammation your body's going to produce. And like I was saying, inflammation is going to progressively further desensitize all of your membrane hormone receptor sensitivity. Also, high levels of insulin has been shown to increase cholesterol production in the liver and ultimately can lead to your kidneys retaining more sodium and water and raising up your blood volume and your blood pressure. So really being mindful of your macronutrient consumption can go a long way to reducing inflammation in the body and to maintaining hormone receptor sensitivity as you age. Now, the final thing I'm going to talk about today that is an influencer of inflammation and thus your metabolism is the shifting hormonal terrain with age. So, as I mentioned, the adrenal cortical hormones are steroids, which all have anti-inflammatory properties, and they are known to decline with age. And then there's a more precipitous decline of our ovarian steroids in women, as well as a gradual decline of testosterone in men as they age. And what can you do? So number one is you can really work on stress reduction techniques, because stress will precipitate the adrenal hormone decline. It's almost as if the stress causes the adrenal to work overtime, and then over time it gradually starts to poop out. And so ideally you want to incorporate some mindfulness practices, even some yoga or something, some type of like active meditation or a meditative practice that is a sitting practice that will ultimately, allow you to be in a calmer state throughout your day and to handle stress better and be more stress resilient. And then if, beyond that, it's advisable to actually check your hormone levels and talk with a doctor that's skilled in balancing your hormones with bioidentical hormones. Because if your adrenal cortical hormones have really fallen, and you can identify that with a blood test, you can actually take DHEA and pregnenolone. These are over the counter, and they can be taken safely under the direction of a medical doctor. And I've been doing that with patients for 23 years and find that can really help reduce inflammation in the body and increase the metabolism. So testosterone and DHEA are both fat-burning, leanness-promoting hormones that both have been shown to enhance the sensitivity of your insulin receptor and can, over time, reduce inflammation. So with all of these measures, active detox strategies, balancing your macronutrients and reducing your consumption of carbohydrates, and taking a look at your adrenal steroid hormones and balancing them if necessary, can really reduce inflammation in the body and optimize the metabolism as you age.